Welcome to the Tarot Tapestry, a weaving of self-discovery, where three tarot mavens put their heads and hearts together to offer their wisdom and insights about the tarot. We hope that you find this helpful in your personal journey to self-discovery and growth.
Join us as we explore ways to use tarot for self-reflection and self-correction.
Together, we'll discover new ways to use tarot to weave threads of understanding into the tapestry of your life. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Tarot Tapestry. Today, we will be talking about the new moon in Capricorn, which I am pretty excited to talk about. This is something new that we have not yet done on our podcast, so I'm very excited about it. And I seem to have a real affinity for this particular new moon, and I guess we can get into that a little bit later. Does anybody want to share anything about the new moon right now? Angie? You look very excited to talk about it.
I am. I'm talking with my hands. I've been using the moon phases as kind of a planning aid as a timing thing, especially since I had hysterectomy, so I don't have that particular, body clock going anymore. And I really enjoy it. It is a kind way. You get a brand new fresh start every 28-ish days, to try again. And it is, I don't know, it just feels kinder and easier to keep up with than the Gregorian, first of the month and timing things that way for some reason. I don't know why. I think maybe it's because I don't have a traditional job, so I don't punch a clock, and it just feels nice to be able to go at the pace that nature's moving. And
I agree with you 100% on that because I think when you look at, your New Year's resolutions, you're talking about like for a whole year. Whereas in the lunar cycles, everything is broken down. Like there's so many different ways that you can use the lunar cycle, right? So we can take maybe one larger goal and we can break it up into monthly intentions and monthly actions that kind of lead us up to where we want to be, right? Or we can take just smaller things and work on them on a monthly basis. And the other thing that I truly, truly like about it, and I've noticed this for myself, is that I am always reminded about reflecting, setting an intention, and taking action. It's like those, to me, those three words are like super important. It's like I'm setting my intention, what I want to achieve, right? The actions that I'm going to take. And then along the way, it is a constant reflection, a constant reassessing, and then saying, okay, do I need to continue with this? And if I do, what is my new intention? What are some of the newer actions that I might take? And it's just like, it not programs your brain, but it like kind of puts you into a habit of continuously thinking about your goals, your actions, and what might be working and what isn't working, and then how you can change that up.
adjust. Yeah, I like using the moon cycle because it feels kinder to me. It then I'm going to have this task done by, Wednesday at 2 p.m. It's easy. It feels better to me to set my goal for what I want, but then I don't know, just not the hard ends of the dates. It just sort of you just sort of go with the energy, and sometimes I think it's easier to change direction if you're following the lunar cycle rather than very strict. I mean, obviously, some people you need to meet deadlines for work and pay your bills on time and all of that
Yeah.
good stuff. But I'm talking more along the lines of achieving personal goals. And it's easier to be kinder and to say, I still like that goal, but maybe I just want to tweak it just this little bit. So now that what would have been a hard deadline if I set a date and a time for it, I kind of change it and it'll happen when it happens.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that. Linda, did you want to chime in on some of your
Yeah,
feelings
sure.
about
Yeah, I agree with
what both of you said. I think it's a great way to tune into your body, because we are tied to the cycles. And even though, like in Angie's case, having a hysterectomy, in my case, past menopause, so we don't have that, monthly reminder that women do anymore, but we still are of the earth. We're still, in the rhythm of that. And I was just on a trip the last couple of weeks, and I got to the Pacific Ocean while I was in LA, and I just was there for an afternoon, and I just kind of sat, and and the tide was coming in, and I went to it was Will Rogers. It was a state park beach, so it was just they had parking facilities and just way to get out there. There wasn't wasn't really crowded, but there was a gentleman out there swimming, putting on his wetsuit and swimming, and they had some rocks, kind of I don't know what you call that, a jetty kind of thing with rocks. So I went over and just kind of sat on the rocks, and I had to move a couple of times because the water kept coming up, and there were a couple of those birds with the long beaks, and they were looking for whatever they look for, and then they'd have to run back because the water kept coming in, and just sitting there for that period of time reminded me of how the tides and the moon and the gravity and all these scientific things do affect us. And so, yeah, I think, I'm it's a little harder for me right now where I live, because I don't really have a space to go outside and look at the moon very often. And I have done that in the past a lot. I kind of like to go out, if I wake up in the middle of the night and the moon's out, I like to go out and be under it. And where I am right now, I don't have a place really to do that, and it kind of bothers me. But I have my stuff over here on my windowsill, and where we face directly east. So east is over here and west is here. And so when the moon goes over, it rises in the east. And if I were to come up here at, say, 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, I could probably see it pretty well out of the window, which is nice. So I might have to do that if I wake up at that time of night, just get myself up here and do that. But yeah, the moon is, I'm way more team moon than team sun. I mean, sun's there. We need the sun. It gives us life and heat and all that. But, like Angie says, I use a house as my sunscreen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mother Nature and I are more comfortable looking at each other through a window.
And I like, Linda, when you were talking about, not that I like it, because, I understand the feeling of wanting to see the moon more. And like in my neighborhood, sometimes I can't see the moon depending on where it's rising because of
Right.
My neighborhood and the buildings and such. So what I love about using the lunar cycle is that, each phase has a symbolic meaning, right? Each phase means something, and you don't really have to see it, although I think it just enhances the whole experience if you do get an opportunity to see it. But I think just thinking about what each of those phases symbolizes is just a beautiful way to work with it. So when you think about the new moon, it's the beginning. It's the beginning of the lunar cycle. And they also have another word called the dark moon, and that's literally when the moon is just dark. You can't see it at all.
Yeah, thank you for saying that, because I was going to kind of jump in there.
Yeah.
And I want to, because in the witchy world, people think of the new moon as when you can't see it in the sky. And that is not the new moon. That is the dark moon. And like the full moon, it lasts for a day and a half, 2 days, because the moon is usually full. It's completely full for a little while, but it's considered full for like a day and a half, 2 days, until it really starts to wane. And the dark moon is the same way. So it's when you can't, what is it? But the earth is between the sun and I don't know how you do it, but you cannot see it at all. It's there, but you can't see it. And so the new moon is that day that comes and you see that tiny little thin crescent, and that is the new moon. And I think in some circles they think they say the new moon, and they're actually meaning the dark moon. So
Yeah,
I
and
don't
I
know.
think too with when you're working with like a new moon circle, or you're working with new moon intentions and such, the idea of the new moon being that little sliver of that crescent moon, I think is very symbolic because in those new moon circles or when you're setting intentions, you are creating an intention for yourself. Like you're saying, my intention is just hypothetically, my intention is to eat healthier meals so I can, take care of my body. And then so now you've already set that intention and, it's like that crescent moon, just that little, you've already planted that seed, right? That
Right.
idea. And then as the moon as you start to see the light or the light increases, now you're just adding more steps to that intention, like my actions. So when you do these like new moon circles and you're setting intentions, I do think having that crescent moon is good because it's very symbolic or visually, it's like, okay, the light is now coming and I am able to now set my path, and
Right.
then the dark moon happens to fall at the very end of that waning cycle, right? Which is, that time is for, kind of reflecting and thinking about how everything prior has gone and maybe getting a little bit more in tune with your shadow sides and leading up to the intention that you want to set, right? Being
Yeah.
like that dark moon.
Well,
Yeah, it's like
if
time
you
to
wanted to,
just I'm sorry, I didn't mean to
no,
interrupt you.
no, that's okay. Go
It's
ahead.
the dark moon is it's like a nice a pause. Like you were saying, you digest kind of what you've just wrapped up and think about whether you want to continue with that or if you need to change it a little or go a completely different way. And it gives you a minute to think about if you are into the astrology of it. I like to use the zodiac and link that with the tarot when I can. Like the new moon in Capricorn is the devil card. And to think of uh, themes maybe around that and how can I use that kind of energy. And it's also, you can use the elemental, it's an earth sign, and I like doing it that way for a year because you just kind of get a really well-rounded review of your life and, all of the different themes that you go through with the zodiac and with the tarot together. You can really do some very deep self-reflection and figuring out um I think a lot of people I know, at least I do, for very often, I don't know really exactly what I want. I think I know how I want to feel, but I don't really know the steps and breaking it down, like you were saying, maybe you have a big goal for the year, and then you can use this system to sort of design your own pathway, find your own pathway. And there are also, I'm using Benabel Wen's tarot and shadow work for activating dynamic power.
My,
And she taught
Ooh, that
because, and
sounds exciting.
I'm
is this
using
a
the devil
book or
card.
is this a
Yeah,
course?
it's a yes, it's a Benabel Wen. It's in everything. So,
Yeah,
um,
that's
but
right.
yeah, but anyway, I just because I have a hard time setting goals. Um, So I thought this would be great because 2025 is my, how you have your tarot year card is my devil year. And I thought it would be really great to start it with this new moon because it's new moon in Capricorn, which lines up with and she talks about, using the tarot along with moon phases. For earth power is the phase that she assigned to that is the third quarter, the last quarter, waning moon. And on for 13 moon cycles, you uh do your ritual and it's daily
Very
meditation and
cool.
all that stuff, which is right up my alley. So I will let you guys know how it goes, but that's what I've been
For sure.
trying to occupy myself with while I've been so freaking sick with the germs that are going around right now. I
Well,
haven't gotten a lot done until today, though.
I was going to say that if you, you can condense this down into like a day. So you could, your crescent moon is when you get up in the morning and you get up and you get ready to do your thing for the day. And then as you go through the morning, it gets brighter and brighter and you wax. And then the noontime would be the full moon. And you would have, hopefully accomplished some of what you needed to do, in the daytime and get things together for what you're doing in the evening or what you're going to do tomorrow. And then as you wane down to the evening, it's like the waning. And then there's the last crescent sort of in the evening when you settle down, you've had dinner, you've, got everybody or whatever you need to settle in your house settled. And then the dark moon would be when you're asleep. And you kind of think of it that way if you want to condense it down into just a day cycle.
And that's fantastic because that gives you like a really good understanding and a
Mm-hmm.
visualization of, of what it's like. And for this particular new moon, I could see the excitement on Angie's face about it. And I kind of feel that way too. I really do. I mean, I am not doing the Benabel when part of it, but thinking about this new moon in Capricorn. Now, I am not an astrologer. I don't know very much about astrology, but what I do like using is just kind of looking up some of the key points, right, for each of the signs and the tarot card, because I love using the tarot card with it, and just picking a few of them that I want to work with in that like lunar cycle. And this one being in Capricorn and Capricorn being an earth sign, the first thing I think about is just staying grounded, right? And I think about a foundation that I'm building for myself. So, if we're talking about self-growth, if we're talking about this journey to reaching my authentic self, I think having this very strong foundation is like super important. And then you take other parts of the Capricorn characteristics, like, they perseverance is another one, right? They have a strong desire to achieve. They like to set actionable, intentional actions. And I start to think about that, and I get very excited, when I start to think about, oh my God, okay, the actions that I'm going to take, and this is what I want to do, and I love that energy, and then that groundedness, and it made me think of two in our symposium, I facilitate new moon circles. And, for this new moon, it's called Roots of Wisdom. And it's all about the roots of a tree, and you look at that in comparison to Capricorn, where it's an earth sign, it's the foundation, and your roots. The roots are the foundation for the tree. The roots is what helps to nurture the tree and keep it growing. Um, and I love, yeah, I'm just gonna stop there because I can just ramble on.
I'm
I
gonna
like the
go off on
time
a,
of
I'm
year
gonna
too because it's with the devil card. The devil card is kind of also about like what do you want? What do you want too much of? Or,
Mhm.
how are you stuck? Because in the in the original imagery, the chains are around the people are very, very loose. They can take it off and walk away. It doesn't mean it's easy, but it's under their control, like it's their decision. And I like that for this time of year because it's dark. It's, if you're in the northern hemisphere, it's getting darker earlier, it's staying darker a little bit later. It's, cold and gray, and it's just a really good time to sit and reflect on what do I really want in my life? What do I not want anymore in my life? Especially, I think, with the devil card. And I love my Capricorn friends, but every Capricorn friend I have is very um exact. and they know the right way, and it is their way is the right way. And
You mean a
so
little stubborn? Are you talking about
just
a
a
little
just
stubborn, Angie?
a little bit stubborn, just a tiny, tiny
My
bit.
daughter
That's
my daughter is a
stubborn old sea
Capricorn.
goat. Yeah.
Yeah, my
Yeah.
daughter is a Capricorn and I'm a Taurus, so you can imagine how that household was.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a right way and a wrong way to do everything.
Right.
And you're doing it wrong. Um,
I'm a Taurus, I'm
but
always right. It's just
yeah.
just accept it and go with it.
So I really like this new moon. This is one of my favorite ones of the year as well. I guess was the point of that whole rambling.
And I was thinking, you brought up the devil card. Um, and I like, for me, the devil card represents also like our shadow side, right? Like the parts of us that, need attending, but we have like this fear about kind of going and digging deep in there, and working on it. And, like I see a lot of my sober journey, my recovery in that devil card. Like that devil card was me before. It still is me, but a bit different now, before I got sober, and that idea of allowing um, allowing my shadows to control me. And I was always one growing up to have control issues. Like I needed to control everything, but you don't realize how much you are being controlled by other things, and the to have that opportunity for me in the beginning of this new year that's coming in 2025 to consciously think about more of these, maybe these habits or these fears or the attachments that I have that directly relate to me, um, keeping my foundation strong and building upon my foundation. It makes me so excited. Is that crazy? Am I
I
do
don't
I
think it's
sound like a
crazy.
nut job?
I think that you have really faced a big scary thing that was in your closet, and
Yeah.
you know, you've come out on top. And so when you think of facing your shadow, you understand already on a deep bone level that that means my freedom is on the other side of this fear that I'm feeling right
Yes.
now. I know it is, and I know I have access to it, and I just have to find it. So
Right.
yes,
Yes.
I that's why I like shadow work. That's why I like helping people with their shadow work, because that is the quickest way. It is not the easiest way, but it is the quickest way to freedom from, whatever you're suffering with.
And
And
when you get a taste of that freedom,
mm-hmm,
it's like, boy, does it build your confidence, it
mm-hmm.
builds your stamina, and it just gives you this drive to like, Lindsay, you're gonna have to mute yourself.
Zeus is being so naughty.
I know that just for our listeners out there, it's her
Could you hear
dog
his
that she was
tail?
talking to.
Yes.
Oh my goodness, too funny, too funny. Um, Oh yeah, I totally just lost. Oh, the excitement of it, or just knowing that those little, and this is for like anybody who's listening, all those little tiny um achievements that you make along the road, it like builds up and it builds your confidence in yourself. And this idea that and it helps to make you stronger, it helps to make you feel like, what, I can conquer this. And like you said, it is not easy at all, but knowing the Capricorn characteristics of being, they're very patient and they also talk about how it's like long-term goals that they work on, and they're very patient. It kind of reminds me of the pentacles well, it is. Well, it
Mm-hmm.
does. It reminds me of the pentacles in the tarot deck, where everything, it takes time, right? And you have to be disciplined in order to get where you need to be, and there needs to be structure and you need to do planning. Like there's things that need to happen in order for you to be able to reach your goal in a way that is going to be the most effective for you. And that's like what Capricorn is. So I get all these ideas in my head about what I want to do, for the new moon. But anyway, so what shall we do? How shall we work this new moon in Sagittarius? I'm
Capricorn.
Sagittarius. I'm so sorry. Oh my goodness. New moon in Capricorn. What would you guys like to do with it? Shall we pull some cards
For sure.
on like the relating to the devil card?
Sure. How
Yeah.
about two things we can something to do more of and something to do less of, maybe. That's not very nuanced, but
All right. I don't know how deep you ladies want to get, but I was thinking too of maybe asking a question about a habit that you have that you want to work on. Like maybe there's a
okay.
habit that's kind of holding you back,
Yeah.
from doing something. And then maybe a card on some kind of action that you might take or consider to help you deal or to help you work on kind of not releasing the habit, but
Working on it,
kind of
breaking it,
Just
there you go.
changing it,
managing
Breaking
it.
it
whatever.
down, breaking it
Yeah,
down,
breaking it down.
I like
breaking
yours
it
best. Let's
down.
do that. Okay.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's do
I'm
that.
using the Crow Tarot today because right
Oh,
before
Ooh,
I
we
almost picked
met,
that.
right before we met, there was some crows flying around outside making noise. So,
Oh, there were crows everywhere
yeah.
on my trip. Everywhere. They would fly across the road in front of me. They would fly along. They would be on the side of the road. There were crows everywhere.
wow.
Yeah.
I
So
love
I'm
them.
going to
I
generalize it a little bit more, maybe just, what is a fear or a habit or an attachment that you have that you may want to start working on releasing. So that's going to be card number one for our listeners. What fear, habit, or attachment do you have that you might want to release or work on releasing over this new moon cycle?
and what's the
Okay.
second one?
As some kind of what action can you take? An action or two that you can take to kind of help you get started on overcoming or dealing with the fear, the habit, or the attachment that you have.
Okay.
Okay. Well, I pulled the Knight of Pentacles for my thing to overcome, and
Ooh.
the Five of Wands for how to overcome it. So I feel like I can be a little timid and a little bit slow moving. That's which is, I guess that makes sense because I'm a Taurus rising. So, and I have a lot of fixed energy in my chart. I'm, not good with quick changes. And I like the Five of Wands. This card, each crow, there's five crows flying around and they each have a wand and they're sort of, you know, it doesn't really look like they're whacking each other, but they're all kind of going different directions. And I think that's just saying, just write it all down. Just write it all down, write it all down, and then pick something. Because the next card I drew, because you said two things, is the Hermit. So, like,
Oh,
write it down and then, you know, put your head down and do the stuff. So,
And the
I
other
think
thing
that's
is
pretty good
next
advice.
year is a hermit year.
I know, right? That's pretty cool. So I have my personal tarot card of the year, the Devil, and I pulled the Hermit, which is the 2025 like collective tarot triumph of the year of
Right.
2025. So, yep.
the other thing I was thinking too is that I was listening to a podcast and I can't remember the name of it. Not a podcast. Well, it might be a podcast. It was on YouTube. and they were talking about 2025 numerologically is number 9, and I really liked the idea of looking at this new year as an opportunity to kind of end some cycles, like end some chapters, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
9 is just, oh my goodness, can you hear that? No.
Yeah, I can hear you. I can't hear anything.
I don't hear
Oh, I
anything
had
but
my
you.
phone ringing. I thought you guys
Oh,
could hear it. I'm
no,
sorry.
can't hear it.
But this idea of ending stuff, right? So when we think about wanting to, rid ourselves of, negative attachments or habits that hold us back, I love the idea of having this year be number 9. It's like making some endings, like ending some old chapters in your life, releasing things that are no longer serving you. So it's like all these little things that kind of come together and just give me this bigger picture of, what this next year could be
Yeah.
like. And then one of the words that they gave too, as sort of like maybe, people come up with like a word for the year.
Mm-hmm.
They were talking about self-awareness, and just, and I love that. Anyway, I'll stop now and just continue
That's
trying to
that's
pull a
good.
card
I
here.
like self-awareness too for like the devil and the hermit together. I feel like tarot's
Mm,
just like, listen, you've got all these ideas, just do and this year, I'm pulling the hermit. Like this year, stop
Yeah,
twiddling your thumbs and
I feel like in this coming year, the Hermit is a big message, and I'm thinking on the macro level, okay, because of what's going to happen on January the 20th, which is, I'm trying not to gag even saying it. But I think what's going to happen in a lot of places for a lot of people is that they're going to pull back and they're going to concentrate on their own community, where they are, what's in front of them in their own community, their next door neighbors, their whatever. And I'm thinking about that. I'm thinking about we got a new person that moved in next door. I don't know who they are. I haven't met them yet. They moved in when I was gone. Um, I speak to my neighbors on the corner when I see them out. They speak to me, but I'm thinking about making a goodie to give to everybody before the end of the year and
it's nice, yeah.
just learning their names, who all's there. Um, I bought one of those tong things that you can reach and pick things up with, and I want to go out and start picking up trash. Now, we have I mean, we have people, obviously we all have garbage and sometimes our garbage cans overflow and stuff, but also because we live on a really busy street and also because Pueblo is incredibly windy, trash blows into the front of our yard, in the front of our property all the time. It's nobody's fault. They're not going out there dumping
Yeah.
trash. It just comes. And so I want to go out there and start picking up trash because I want people to see that even though I don't own where I live, it's still where I live and I want it to look nice, you
Mm-hmm.
know. And
so
even
is
the
that an
landlord,
intention you're setting for yourself, Linda, for this new
well,
moon cycle?
I don't know if it's for the new moon because I've thought about it. I thought about it and I ordered one set of tongs and they were ridiculous. They didn't work and I finally got a pair of tongs that work. So it's been on the burner for a while. But yeah. Um, and I think that with the hermit, it's like I don't think it's all about I don't think it's all about isolating yourself, but I think it's
No.
about pulling back and concentrating on the things that you can control, the things that you can have an effect on, which
Well, the hermit
is
has a
your
light. The hermit comes back to the community and says, this way, guys.
right,
You
right.
know?
And so I can't do anything about what happens in Washington, D.C. Not a thing. I mean, I can write my congressman, I can complain, I can moan and groan. That's about all I can do. But I can connect with people who live around me and maybe in that way build a system or build relationships where if something happens, we know we can help people. And
Mm-hmm.
so, that is something that I feel like is really important. And the card that I pulled for um, what I'm supposed to release, I guess, release or habit, whatever, was the Eight of Pentacles. I got a pentacle and a wand as well.
Oh, cool.
Oh,
And I see this as my habit that I want to kind of pull away from is spending so much time scrolling. You know, I get up in the morning, I
mm,
get my coffee, I get on the whatever. I'm trying to, like last night, I've got all these books. Somehow these books have accumulated, you know, that I said I'm not buying any more books, and yet I have stacks of books that are growing. So some of them have been given to me, and some of them I bought. And so last night I read for like an hour before I went to bed. And you know, when I get in, lie down and get in bed, I have a card. I play cribbage. I have a card game that I play, and it kind of helps me go to sleep. And so I'm not going to apologize for that, and I'm not going to stop being on the
Yeah.
internet. But I need to be aware of the fact that there's a lot of time that I give to that I could be doing things like, honing my skills and some of the things that I want to do. And so in order to hone my skills, I have to stop, frittering away the time that I have in, you know, in that. And so the other card I got was the Page of Wands, um, which I think just tells me that I kind of have to look at this all as a game. Just look at it as this whole thing is just playing. We're just playing a game. We have this consensual illusion that we call real life, which is, real life in quotes. And I think we just need to lighten up a little bit and play more and
have
consider
fun
it
with
more,
it.
have fun with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have fun with
Gamify
it.
your stuff. I do that like with my chores. I'll like set a timer for 5 minutes and see how much I can get done. And it helps to break when I'm feeling really sedentary or like nothing because I battle depression. I don't think that's nobody's gonna make a surprised face when I say that in public. But one of the symptoms of that is just not feeling like anything fucking matters. Like,
Yeah.
and you would be so surprised if you just grit your teeth and set a timer for 5 minutes and fold a sock and then fold another sock. And before you know it, you've put away a whole basket of laundry in 5 minutes and it's
Yeah.
folded. And
Yeah.
and and it helps you to work on your perfectionism of just being grateful for what you can do. And it starts to shift your attention from what you can't manage at the moment to what you can.
Yeah,
So what did you get,
absolutely.
Kate?
So I got the Six of Cups for, fears or habits or attachments. And I resonate with it very much because, so when I think about this foundation that I was talking about, right? When I think about the new year, when I think about how I want to work on myself, right? Um, and build a stronger foundation, I think to myself, because I'm a new grandmother, right? I had my grandbaby a week ago, first one, and I am just like over the moon. But it like switched something in my brain to want to be just a more authentic person moving forward and having that more authentic me having a relationship with my grandson, right? And the way that you do that, or for me, the way that I can do that is to like go back to the past and see, okay, so what kind of attachments or habits have I been doing that's not allowing me to like grow, right? That's so it's like that card was like perfect because it's like going back. And I was like, wow, like that is just so true because I need to go back to my past and see various things in my upbringing to see even too if I'm doing the shadow work at a deeper level is to kind of go back and have a better understanding of where did this belief I may have had about something come from? Where did it come from? And then, working with that. So there's like a lot of different levels I think I can um, touch upon with that card. And then the card for like some actionable steps was justice, and to
Mm.
me, it's like if I'm gonna go back and look at things like what is true and what isn't true, what's a fact and what isn't a fact, because we can very easily mix up a fact and fantasy and confuse the two, right? Like we don't always see things as being factual, right? It's more
Mm-hmm.
like made up. What's the opposite of factual? Is false, right? There's a
Fictional.
fact and it's false, fictional, right? So
Yeah.
sometimes I know, and because I am a Pisces, a sun Pisces, I can get very caught up in that fantasy world of making and creating this story that's gonna make it something else as opposed to really dealing with just the facts and the truth of the matter. And sometimes dealing with facts and truths of the matter is really hard because then you have to admit that, you know, that things are not as
Well,
they
and those two
are.
cards, along with the devil, the devil is often the things that we, like you were saying, it's your shadow. So
Mhm.
these are things that you don't want to think about or whatever. And a lot of that comes from before you really are aware of, I'm making memories with my brain. A lot of this stuff
Mhm.
happens when you're a little kid and
Yeah.
isn't anyone's fault. It's not, and with the Six of Cups and Justice together, it's justice is, yeah, what's true, what's fair, but it's also you deserve justice. You deserve to feel however it is you feel. Like we don't
Mhm.
all get to act on our dark feelings. We shouldn't. That would be awful if everybody did, but you have a right
Yeah.
to feel them and to acknowledge them and to say, ow, that really hurt me. And I need to figure out how to heal that part of myself, that little kid part of myself.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Mm.
That's like that inner child work,
Mhm.
right? So
And
much of, go ahead.
I was just going to say, the devil card is a really scary card for a lot of people, but there's a lot of really good lessons in it. And it's not like, this isn't the Christian devil, the guy who with the pitchfork that throws you in the lake of fire and does all those terrible things. This is your everybody. This exists in everybody. And by learning what your devil is, that's how you really get to know yourself and how you come to understand that these scary parts of yourself, they're not here to mess you up or to torture you or to make you suffer. They're here to be understood.
Yes.
And um, that is a really scary process a lot of the time, which is one of the reasons I like using tarot. I feel like it's a very supportive system, and I have made friends in this community that I can. This is a like a translator for me. I'm not really super great at discussing my emotions. I can talk about yours all day long. but but I'm not great at discussing my own. And so, in this circle of people that I've come to know through this doing this in a more social sort of way, it's it's not as lonely. And it's not as, well, for one, it's not as expensive as going to, not everyone can afford to speak to a therapist once a
Yeah.
Right.
week or 3 times a week like I would want them. But um it's a good place to start, and it is a good like thermometer, I think. I can tell if everything I read in the tarot, if everything is just terrible, that I need to uh branch out and call Linda and be like, what's wrong with my brain? Um,
Help!
but it's a good way to, it doesn't really externalize any of this because all the work you have to do is internal and it's up to you. That's another thing the devil teaches us is some things Nobody's coming to save you, pumpkin. You got to do
Right.
this yourself. And you can. And you can. That's why the chain is loose, in my
Well, I
opinion.
mean, even when you're going to therapy, if you go to the right therapist,
Mm-hmm.
they're just going to guide you, give you a starting point as to how to do those things yourself. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I
Oh, and I'm not saying this is like a replacement for therapy.
no,
Therapy
no,
is
not at all.
great.
No, not at all. But the best therapists are not, they're not, it's like a teacher. A teacher doesn't really teach you. They present information and give you a way to learn it. You have to learn it. You have to do the work in therapy, or whether you do it yourself in a different direction or whatever. But if you don't have those tools, and a lot of people don't have those tools from their upbringing, or what was modeled to them as adulthood or whatever, so they need that therapeutic help to guide themselves. But the therapist is not going to fix them. They have to do the work themselves, and if they're not willing to do that work, then they won't get fixed. Or, not
And
that,
that's what you do in therapy. You are facing your your devils, right? Your
Yeah.
shadow side
right.
with every single thing that you're working on. Like each of those little things that you're working on in therapy is like your shadow, right?
Right.
Your devil, and you're learning how to see and understand that you have a little more control over changing that than you think. It's like
Yeah.
taking back your power to say, I can do this for me. Like Angie, you had said, those chains around the people are really loose. They can easily just take it off themselves, but they're living in this illusion of I can't. I'm attached to it.
It's
I can't get out.
and
Right?
it's out of my control, completely out of my
Yeah.
control.
That's like
Exactly.
one of the cards in the Zen deck, and I want to say it's five of Pentacles. It corresponds to five of Pentacles. Is that it's a little kid looking through a gate that's locked, and it's called the outsider, and there's like all this pretty light on the other side, real soft rainbow kind of light, and they're looking in like, you see them from the back, I can't get in. But then when you look down, the lock is not fastened. It's just through the thing. So if you want to open it, you just pull the lock out and go through. But they're so busy going, oh, I can't get in, that they don't see that they can get in if they just would look.
And that's, I think, too, it's a good way in learning how to solve problems, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
the minute that you're faced with something, for many of us, your first reaction is, oh, I don't think I'm going to be able to do this. But
Mm-hmm.
you have to learn how to delve into it further, right? You need that light from the hermit, to
Mm-hmm.
kind of see in that darkness, a bit better, so that you can look and see, okay, what are the other tools that are around me that I can utilize to help me deal, with this
Yeah.
problem.
I
I
was
mean,
doing something.
that's kind of how to, like, I'm sorry to cut you off, Linda, but like seeing this whole new moon, um, just using the new moon and the lunar cycle is simply that, taking this idea, something that you want to do to better yourself, and then using the cycle to kind of guide you to see, like, the tools that you have, and using the tarot cards to kind of help give you a different perspective, or to see things in a different way, to kind of help you. And how you may start with one way, right? You have this one intention, and you may have set these actions, or said, I'm going to do this, this, and this. And then as you go through the cycle, you come to a point, usually within the full moon, where now you're like, okay, how is it going? Like, I had some of these challenges. Is what I set out to do, my actionable steps, really working for me? Or do I need to kind of change it or tweak it? I think you had mentioned that
Mm-hmm.
before, Angie. Do I need to tweak it to, like, move on? Or am I just not ready yet to
Mm-hmm.
do this? Maybe I'm not,
Well,
maybe I'm not ready to have this goal or to reach, to manifest this intention that I want. And that's okay too, because sometimes we're not always ready to, do everything that we want to do. But I love this talk about the new moon,
Me too.
and I'm hoping that we can do more of this, in the future for this
Definitely.
podcast. And I hope our listeners, maybe if you've never really worked with the lunar cycle or the new moon in general, I hope we, gave you some good information, and you may want to try it for this new moon. Did anybody else want to add any more to our new moon discussion or your cards that you pulled?
Well, this was really fun, and I think we should do this again next month.
All right, ladies. Well, thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am. This was
this
good.
great conversations. Absolutely.
Next week we're going to do 6s and 7s.
We are hoping that we're going to get 6s and 7s, but you know what? Sometimes we like to change things up. So let's just leave it as we will have another episode next week. What it will just be a surprise, and you'll have to tune in to find out.